military, in law enforcement. I've seen a lot of people die. I've seen a lot of really bad things. But you never think anything's gonna happen to you. Not that you're above it. It always happens to somebody else. Nothing could have prepared me for what actually happened. The deputy showed up at my door. All he said was, "You need to call your dad." My dad started crying, and he told me that there had been a fire at my mom's house. The only people living in the house was my mom, Vicki, her boyfriend, John, and my little sister, Becky.
We're still waiting for positive identification on 3 bodies found at a burned-out home in Pinyon Pines.
We knew right away that everyone was dead. Maybe my mom fell asleep with a cigarette or a gas leak. But what happened was much, much worse. I learned that Becky was found in a wheelbarrow. Apparently she had been placed in this and set on fire. My baby sister was gone.
This was the front of the house, and the wheelbarrow was found here.
We know that it was brought to this spot because there were tracks rolled out that way.
Why bring her body towards the front of the house?
We think it was to pose her, and they wanted to leave some kind of symbol, make it as personal as possible.
That's hate. She was obviously the target.
And when I heard the wheelbarrow situation, that's when I knew it was him.
Waiting for my precious boyfriend.
Say hi, Robert.
Hi, guys.
Because he had threatened to kill her.
A lot of the evidence pointed toward Robert Pape and Christian Smith. Robert Pape was Becky's ex-boyfriend. Christian Smith was Robert Pape's best friend.
7 years. 7 years went by before anything happened.
Yesterday, police arrested 25-year-old Kristen Smith and Becky Friedley's ex-boyfriend, Robert Pape.
We know Robert, and anyone who knows him knows how ridiculous the accusations are.
My son Christian saves lives. He saved lives in Afghanistan. He doesn't take lives.
There's no way. It's all very obvious that there's no way.
Robert Pape and Kristen Smith are accused of 3 counts of murder. And if you just look at all the evidence, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't work. This is not the case that should be brought against these 2 men.
There is not a doubt in my mind that they have the right people. I know that they do.
Murder in Pinyon Pines.
It was a vicious triple homicide, but there were almost no clues left behind. That's because a fire consumed the crime scene, destroying vital evidence. With the investigation hampered from the start, it would take nearly 12 long years to bring this case to trial and to its emotional conclusion. Troy Roberts brings us the murder in Pinyon Pines.
This foundation is all that remains of the Friedley home in Pinyon Pines, California. On the evening of September 17, 2006, Tanya Friedley's childhood home was burned to the ground.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about what happened. I miss them every day.
Inside the home, investigators have found the bodies of Tanya's 53-year-old mother, Vicki Friedley, and her 55-year-old boyfriend, John Hayward. It was later determined they had both been shot.
The homicide unit is treating this as a homicide.
Outside in a burning wheelbarrow were the charred remains of Tanya's 18-year-old sister, Becky, her body too badly burned to determine the cause of death.
The worst part is that's my baby sister. I was supposed to be the one to protect her and be there for her. That's my job.
Tanya, then a deputy sheriff in another town, relayed the devastating news to her sister Drew, an Air Force medic stationed in Japan at the time.
I think it's just mortifying when you find out that somebody could be that horrible and sinister, like something you'd see in a horror flick as opposed to real life.
For Drew and Tanya, it's hard to reconcile that horrific murder scene to their storybook upbringing on the property. Their father, Ron Friedley, had built their home himself in the mountains high above the desert heat of the Coachella Valley.
It was just a nice place. It was country. It was definitely out of the city, and I liked it. It was a great place for the kids to grow up.
Ron doted on his daughters, and so did his wife, Vicky.
My mom was just a very kind-hearted, wonderful woman.
She loved being a mom. She loved gardening. She loved sewing and quilting and cooking. You know, that was really important for her to teach us how to cook, even from a very, very young age.
The youngest of the sisters was high-spirited Becky Friedley.
Becky was always just an amazing person. I mean, even when she was small, always had a smile on her face. She was always there for you.
She was smart. Becky used to actually help Tanya and Drew with their homework. And you know, she's 4 years younger than them. She got along with everybody. She really did. She was just a fun, happy person.
But the happy times as a family didn't last. Ron and Vicky divorced after 13 years of marriage.
She was a good person, but we sort of grew apart.
As the years passed, Tanya and Drew also left home. Becky remained behind with her mother, who eventually found love again with contractor John Hayward.
My dad called Vicky his cupcake because she was just so sweet.
Kitty Hayward is John's daughter.
They were drawn together because they both loved the outdoors and they loved living up there together. And I would be like, Dad, why are you guys living up here? Just come down to the city. What is up here? And he would always say, like, it's free up here. No one will ever bother us, and this is the safest place that you can be.
Then came that night in September. At first, no one could imagine who would want to hurt John, Becky, and Vicky.
I really had no idea. The finger was being pointed at everyone, I think. There were all kinds of rumors.
Rumors started circulating that perhaps they had been murdered by someone with a grudge against Ron Friedley. Ron had retired the year before from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department.
Did you believe that this may have been some sort of retribution for your work in law enforcement?
No, I really didn't. I never really was involved in anything where somebody would have said, I want to get back at this guy. I didn't have that kind of career.
So you had no enemies?
Not really, no.
Investigators looked into that theory and quickly ruled it out, but then rumors began swirling about Ron Friedley himself.
I mean, it's just natural to think that possibly the husband or family could have been involved, and I understood that going into it.
Were you interviewed?
Yes, I was. I was crying probably through most of it.
Investigators asked Ron to take a polygraph test.
That was probably the first time that I really felt like I was kind of a suspect. So I got up there, I took the polygraph, and the lady came out and she said, this is one of the best tests I've ever given in my career. She says, it was incredible. You did fine.
Phone records put Ron 11 hours away at his property in Northern California when the crime took place, and police ruled him out as a suspect. But there was one person, a friend of Becky's, who says she knew immediately who was responsible.
This was intentional, and he did it, and I've known since day one he did it.
In the first days after the murders, Ron Friedley was besieged with questions.
None of us really knew why it occurred or had a reason for it. The last thing I thought was that it was something to do with Becky.
But once the initial shock had subsided, Ron began looking at the crime through his investigator's eyes and came to believe that it was Becky who had been targeted. It seemed too personal because of a fear Becky had.
She was really, really afraid of fire. When she was younger, her mom was fixing tacos and she had a pan full of hot grease and Becky had pulled it down off the stove and it burned on her chest.
She had third-degree burns on her chest. So someone that's with someone intimately would know that she had these scars and was scared of fire.
Becky's friend, Jeannie McDaniel, was suspicious about someone right away.
So immediately when you heard the murders, your mind went to Robert Pape?
Immediately. Nothing else in my mind. There's nobody else that could have done this.
Robert Pape was Becky Friedley's ex-boyfriend.
Robert got Becky a corsage.
The teenagers started dating in high school and were together for over a year.
Looks like you guys are getting married.
At first, Becky and Robert seemed happy.
I think it was her first love.
Dun, 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 dun.
I just think she was madly in love with him.
Aww.
But Jeannie says Robert soon grew possessive of Becky.
When her and I went on vacation about 10 months before she died, he called about 20, 30 times in a night, just harassing her, wanting to talk to her while we were hanging out with friends.
20 to 30 times in one night?
Minutes within each other.
In January 2006, Becky and Robert broke up and started seeing other people, but according to Jeannie, Robert's obsessive behavior only grew worse and took an even darker turn shortly before the murders in September.
She came to my house 3 weeks before she died and said he had even threatened to kill me. Those are her exact words. He even threatened to kill me.
Why?
She said because he wasn't taking the breakup well and he wanted her and didn't want anybody else to have her. That's what she said to me.
So were you concerned for her?
I was, but she gave me the impression that it wasn't a big deal. And so I kind of just took her word for it and let it go.
But after the murders, Jeannie says she went straight to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department with her suspicions. As it turns out, Robert Pape was already on their radar.
Everyone was whispering about Robert.
They moved pretty quickly in the direction of Robert. There was a lot of little tiny bits of information from different sources.
One of those sources was Becky's close friend, Javier Garcia Jr., who had given investigators an interesting bit of information. On the night of the murders, he says Becky had told him she was going hiking on her property with Robert and his friend Christian Smith. Tanya Friedley believes her sister probably just wanted to smooth things over with Robert.
My sister was a fixer. She loved with all of her heart, and she gave herself to everything she did.
Garcia Jr.'s lead placed Robert Pape and Christian Smith at the scene of the crime the night of the murders. With rumors pointing towards the two men, the Friedleys were sure that the case would soon be solved.
I kind of felt a sense of relief that they would be arrested.
But as surely as the momentum had started, it seemed to stop. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department never publicly shared any details of the investigation or named any suspects.
It was frustrating, but they just kept saying they didn't have it. They didn't have enough to make an arrest.
Private investigator Luis Bolaños saw his friend Ron grow increasingly despondent.
About 2 or 3 years into this, I'm getting updates from Ron, and I'm finding out that nothing's happening. This case has stalled. It's gone cold.
Luis and Ron had met years earlier at the sheriff's office, where Ron had been one of Luis's first training officers. Now it was time for Luis to help his old teammate.
I begged Ron for years, 2 or 3 years, let me do this for you.
Luis had also worked in the Riverside County DA's office. Although they parted on bad terms, he was certain he could get things moving again.
I knew that we can get this back on the front page where it needed to be, and get those phones burning again.
I really wasn't ready because I really felt in my heart that I thought the Sheriff's Department was going to solve it. I really did.
But as the 6-year anniversary of the crime approached with no arrest in sight, Ron finally gave Lewis the green light. The media-savvy PI got to work, and one of his first orders of business was putting up this provocative billboard.
We wanted to do it before and after. A beautiful picture of Becky, and then a simulated picture of Becky in the wheelbarrow, on fire. It really, really pulled at heartstrings and sickened people.
We believe the following to be true.
Lewis also held a press conference at the murder site with Drew and Tanya Friedley.
We are in this because we believe this case can be solved.
We know somebody out there knows something.
Over the next year, tips started coming in. One of them from Becky's cousin, Daniela Zarmeño, who remembered something that might help investigators.
I had spoken to Becky the night before the murder, and she'd told me that her ex-boyfriend, Robert, had come into her work at Denny's and was harassing her. He had harassed her to the point of being removed from the restaurant.
Daniela says after the altercation, they had discussed going on that hike.
And I think talk about whatever their relationship was, how it was finishing and where it was.
And on the 7th anniversary of the crime, Lewis held yet another press conference at the murder site with Daniela by his side.
The suspects then ignited the accelerant and in turn engulfed Becky in flames.
Ron believes all the media pressure paid off. A few months later, the DA's office subpoenaed Robert Pape and Christian Smith to appear before a grand jury.
It was just stirring the pot. There was something on the news every day about it, and I think they just said, all right, let's go do something, and they did.
As the grand jury drew to a close, there was news.
You're watching KESQ, the desert's news leader.
2 arrests after nearly 8 years in the Pinyon Pines murders.
Pape and Smith were arrested for triple homicide.
I was very happy. It was probably the happiest day of my life.
But as investigators were sure the killers were finally in custody, 2 families say they are just as certain the men are wrongfully accused.
Innocent till proven guilty is a myth. It's guilty till proven innocent.
And the truth's gonna come out. It will come out.
For over 7 years, the families of Becky Friedley, her mother Vicky, and John Hayward have been waiting for this moment.
My heart was in my stomach, seeing them in the jumpsuits and seeing them in the flesh and seeing them handcuffed.
Robert Pape and Christian Smith, both 25, found themselves in a Riverside County courthouse charged with triple homicide. Both pled not guilty.
I think they thought they were going to get away with it.
But these 2 men hardly fit the image of typical defendants. Neither have criminal records. Christian Smith is married and a decorated war hero. Robert Pape is also married and an active member of his church.
I had a really hard time just keeping it together, you know.
Robert's sister Christy struggled seeing him accused of the brutal murder and burning of 3 people.
Somebody like him, someone like him being put in that position, it's really hard to watch.
Christy and Robert's mother, Kathleen, say he is innocent and not the man he has been portrayed as in the media.
They tried to make him out to be a monster, a jealous monster, and he just isn't that.
What kind of man is he?
Robert is an amazing person. He's got a good heart. He's got a gentle heart.
Hardworking, patient, honest. He's always there when you need him.
He sort of takes care of all of us, takes really good care of his wife.
Robert started dating his wife, Sarah, after his breakup with Becky.
He and his wife both have this tremendous heart for animals. He cares about people, he cares about animals. He's just got the utmost integrity.
And Christy and Kathleen aren't Robert's only supporters.
We've had no less than 10 or 11 people at every single hearing. And there's been 30, 33 or 34 people at one of the hearings just coming to support. And the courtroom can't even fit that many of us.
People called us immediately after he was arrested and they were like, no, this isn't right. This is not the Robert I know.
Also looking on in disbelief has been Christian Smith's father, John Conrad Smith.
I know my son didn't do that. I know he's not capable of that.
Smith says his son is an honorable man and was living his dream serving his country in the military as part of the Army's elite 75th Ranger Regiment. It was in Afghanistan that Smith says his son became a hero.
He saved another man's life who was actually shot through the lung. And I have a picture of him pulling him out, and two of his battle buddies, and Christian has one hand on a rifle and pulling his comrade out and firing back at Afghanis.
Christian has won commendations for valor and has been awarded 2 Purple Hearts.
This one is when he was wounded and he was shot through the arm. He got this one. This one was when he took the grenade shrapnel. He deserves better than this. I mean, he's put his life on the line for 5 years now. He's a good guy.
Christian Smith may be a war hero now, but investigators believe back when he was 17, he committed murder with his 18-year-old best friend, Robert Pape.
Christian Smith and Robert Pape had been really, really good friends in high school, and they both kind of beat to the same drum. Robert Pape and Christian Smith both had an extreme fascination with fire.
Becky had complained about Robert and Christian to close friend Brandon Kugler Harrison.
There was one time that they were playing with fire, him and Christian, and that they set something on fire. I think it was a mattress, not 100% sure though. But I remember her just getting mad at him over that and not talking to him for a couple days.
Did your son have a fascination with fire?
No. No, there was no fascination.
They were not troublemakers. They were good kids.
But prosecutors plan on using Robert's words against him. Just a few months before the fire here in Pinyon Pines, Robert had an instant message conversation with his then-girlfriend, Sarah. In that exchange, Robert seemed to offer a solution to Sarah's problems with an ex-boyfriend.
Well, if you know where he lives, we can professionally burn his house down. Considering how Becky, Vicky, and John were killed, it's a very concerning statement. This is 8 months prior to the homicide.
The Riverside County Sheriff's Department and DA's office wouldn't comment on the investigation, but 48 Hours obtained a copy of the grand jury transcripts. During the proceedings, both men pled the fifth, but when questioned by police years earlier, they denied they ever went near Becky's house and said they never had any intention of hiking with her.
Robert and Christian told police during the interview that they were heading to church that night. Apparently they made a phone call on the way there, and the church was in fact closed.
When those plans fell through, the boys said they headed back to Christian's dad's home to hang out and play video games.
Where was your son the night of the murders?
You know what? I wasn't in town.
Well, what did he tell you when you eventually saw him?
He said, we were here.
The boys said they eventually wound up at this middle school where they shot paintball guns.
Nobody saw Christian or Robert at the school playing paintball. Nobody. Their only alibi is each other.
But it was the boys' cell phone activity that night that raised the most red flags to investigators.
They put themselves on the other side of town, and the cell phones say differently.
At 7:13 p.m., Robert's cell phone pinged near the start of Highway 74, the road leading up to the Friedley home. Minutes later, both Christian and Robert's cell phones went silent from about 7:30 to 10 p.m., the time frame investigators believe their murders took place.
They came out of their way to find Becky. Hard to say if John and Vicky were collateral damage.
Tracks and footprints at the scene place Becky's attack near the desert behind the house. Becky was then placed in a wheelbarrow and rolled back towards the house and set on fire.
What kind of evidence was recovered from the scene that links this crime to these two young men?
Well, we know that at the point where the wheelbarrow rolled from, where they put Becky in the wheelbarrow, that they found a business card. And on that business card, they eventually found DNA that was consistent with DNA belonging to Christian Smith.
Inside the home, it was determined Vicky had been shot with a .40 caliber handgun and John Hayward with a shotgun before the house was set on fire. When investigators searched the boys' homes a year later, they found shotguns similar to the one used in the crime. No handguns were ever recovered, but in Robert's house, there were accessories to the type of gun that may have killed Vicky.
In that search warrant, they recovered ammunition to a .40 cal, and they recovered a holster to a Glock 40. That's a powerful piece of evidence.
You believe that police have the right men?
Oh, I'm confident they have the right two guys. Absolutely.
But defense lawyers charge investigators ignored other possible suspects and that the evidence will never hold up at trial.
You have the wrong person here.
For Tanya Friedley, hearing the specific details of the murders has been difficult.
To think about how they must have been pleading for their lives, how scared all of them were, is horrifying.
And believing that one of their alleged killers was someone Becky once loved has been especially painful for Ron Friedley.
She loved him a lot. And that's probably one of the saddest parts about the whole story is, you know, she loved him to death. And he threw it all away. Threw it all away. For nothing.
But nothing is what defense lawyers say the state's case is based on.
And I kept looking for the proverbial other shoe. I went over it. I just didn't see it.
Richard Blumenfeld represents Robert Pape and says the case against his client is built entirely on questionable and hearsay evidence. He points to Becky's cousin, Daniela Cermeño, who said Becky had told her about a fight at Denny's the day before the murders.
Robert had gone to Becky's restaurant and there'd been a scene, an argument, and they'd been asked to take it outside and so on and so forth. That never happened.
Never happened?
Never happened. Nobody could substantiate that anything like that ever happened.
Blumenfeld says a grand jury should have never heard Daniela's testimony or the evidence about the IM exchange between Robert and Sarah, in which he seemingly suggested burning down her ex-boyfriend's house. Blumenfeld argues it was said in a joking fashion.
There were probably over 100 pages of these conversations, and they took one excerpt out of context. It was clearly not seriously said.
Blumenfeld also denies that Robert threatened Becky's life and says there would be no reason for him to be jealous or want to harm Becky because he had already moved on.
He wasn't seeing Becky anymore seriously. She was trying to revive their relationship, but he'd moved on. He was with Sarah.
Whether Robert had a motive or not, Christian Smith's alleged role never made any sense to his attorney, John Patrick Dolan.
The motive, if you can believe this, is he's Robert's friend and he went along with him. That's it. There's no connection with Kristen and Becky. There's nothing that suggests he has any animosity toward her. It's a pretty weak argument.
Dolan thinks all the evidence is weak, starting with the boys' lack of cell phone activity around the time frame of the murders. He says it doesn't prove anything.
It is unusual for a teenager not to use their phone for 2.5 hours.
Well, you could say that. You could also say that he was having a shower, having dinner, and he had a paintball gun and he went out and tested it out near a middle school. And he didn't make any calls for 2.5 hours. It's really not that uncommon at all.
But before the boys' phones went silent, there was that cell tower ping that put Robert, and presumably Christian, at the start of Highway 74 up to Pinyon Pines.
Didn't the ping show that Christian and Robert were somewhere near Becky's home?
Well, that's one of those really interesting anomalies, because a ping doesn't show at all that Kristen was anywhere near that home.
Dolan says that 3 minutes before Robert's phone pinged near Highway 74, Christian's phone pinged off a cell tower miles away.
And I can tell you that prosecution is going to have a hard time getting over Mr. Smith's phone being on the other side of the Coachella Valley when they say Mr. Pape's phone was pinged sometime near the time that there would have had to been an ascent up the mountain.
But the state's FBI experts say cell phones at higher elevations sometimes bounce off other towers. Pinging phones or not, investigators say there is hard evidence putting Christian at the scene, that DNA on the business card.
And that puts him there, and we know that he has denied ever being there.
Dolan questions whether the DNA is Christian's, as the prosecution says it unequivocally is, and argues that even if it is a match, Becky could have previously picked up the card from his client.
She carries it up to her house. She drops it on the ground. That doesn't prove he was there. It simply proves he touched a card. And they have to have something more than he touched a card to prove he was there committing homicide.
And if Dolan dismisses the DNA evidence, he says the gun evidence is almost laughable.
What the argument was by the district attorney was he had access to the kinds of guns that were used. Does that make anybody guilty because they have access to the kind of gun that was used? With no ballistics, with no measurement, with no slugs, with no nothing.
And Christian's father says that the entire argument is moot anyway as far as his son is concerned, because the guns were with him in another state the weekend of the murders.
They were with me. They got put in the trunk of my car.
The defense believes that other people should have been looked at more closely, like Javier Garcia Jr., that friend of Becky's who had first turned investigators towards Robert and Christian, saying they were all going hiking.
So Javier says, Becky says something. How do we find out whether or not that's just him making up something because it points things elsewhere?
Some friends say Garcia Jr. wanted to be more than friends with Becky, and Dolan and Blumenfeld point out that while their clients' phones didn't ping up in the mountains where Becky lived, Garcia Jr.'s did.
If you follow the route that he alleged that he took, it puts him right by Becky's residence.
Why was he driving in the area near the time that this took place? And I was told that Javier Garcia would not testify at the grand jury unless he was granted immunity. Why does he need immunity if he doesn't have anything to do with this?
Dolan also points out that Garcia Jr.'s father is an investigator in the DA's office, raising questions about a possible conflict of interest.
Interesting question about that. There was an investigation, by the way, and to be fair, we have to say, the Attorney General came down and looked at it, said, doesn't look like there's any conflict of interest here. And I accept that for now, but I don't accept it forever.
He was extremely forthcoming with the police and was instrumental in their investigation.
Former federal prosecutor Eduardo Roy represents Javier Garcia Jr. He says Javier's only role is that of key witness and not as a suspect.
He was asked to testify before a grand jury.
Yes, he was.
Did he?
He did not.
Why?
We were there, and then it was decided that they didn't need him.
Did you ever ask for immunity for Javier?
I asked for them to be clear before I made him available that he was not a target or a suspect of the investigation.
Why?
Because I'm a very good lawyer, that's why.
Roy says the reason why Garcia Jr. was driving in the area before the murders was because he wanted to join the group going hiking, but Becky told him not to come.
So he turned around and went home, and what the police did was track where he was.
Police determined Javier Garcia Jr. was back on the desert floor at the time of the murders and ruled him out as a suspect. And Daniela Zarmeño independently backs up Javier's story that Becky planned to go hiking with Robert and a friend the night of the murders.
They had a definite plan to go hiking, the three of them.
The Friedleys believe the evidence, circumstantial or not, paints a damning picture.
When you put it all together, it's them.
I can only hope and pray that a jury of their peers will hear the evidence and come back with a guilty verdict.
I call it the drive of tears.
Almost every Saturday for the last 6 months, John Conrad Smith makes the hour-long drive to visit his son at the Riverside County Jail.
I just think about Christian, and I cry all the way up and all the way back.
Smith says Christian has missed a deployment with his unit and is all but certain to miss out on a huge life event. His wife, Jackie, is about to give birth to their first child.
He's not going to be there for that birth. He's not going to be able to see that birth, and it's horrible. I mean, he's taking it hard. And to see him in that orange jumpsuit, it breaks my heart. It breaks his heart.
Robert Pape's mother, Kathleen, has also been having a hard time seeing her son behind bars.
The thought goes through your head, like, will I ever be able to touch him?
But there is another parent out there who wakes up each morning thinking these men are exactly where they belong.
One of the first things I do in the morning is I get a cup of coffee and I go outside. I think about Becky and I think about those two boys in jail.
After years of waiting, The Friedleys and Haywards feel they are one step closer to justice as they wait for a trial date to be set.
It's a nice feeling knowing that they're going to have to answer for what they did. If the jury finds them not guilty, so be it. If they found guilty, then they're going to pay for the crime that they committed.
But the case was about to take an unexpected turn. 8 years after the murders, the prosecutor assigned to this case walked inside this courthouse and asked that all charges against Robert Pape and Christian Smith be dropped.
A bombshell out of an Indio courtroom today. Charges dropped.
Really emotional. Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy. I'm numb. Yeah, I'm happy he's coming home. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go get him right now.
The DA's office offered little explanation for their decision. In a prepared statement, they said legal issues had arisen during the grand jury proceedings against Robert Pape, making it appropriate to ultimately dismiss the charges against both men.
The system worked. I have faith in my son, and that's all I can tell you.
The dismissal was so unexpected that neither man was in the courtroom that day. Christian's dad broke the news to him from outside the jail.
You've been released. You've been released, your mom and I and everybody. Everybody's here. The baby's on her way. We're just waiting for you to get the paperwork done and for you to walk out that door. We're all waiting outside for you, son.
And just a few hours later, Christian Smith, with Robert Pape closely behind, walked out together. Christian held his 2-week-old daughter, Zoe, for the first time.
I just want to be with my beautiful baby girl and my amazing wife and my loyal family and my brothers over in the military that have been loyal to me throughout this whole thing. I just hope I can just move on with my life and put this behind me.
Robert's family was waiting for him at a location nearby.
What was it like hugging your son when he walked out?
Oh my gosh, that first time holding him, I didn't want to let him go, but I had to scoot over and let her hug him, let his wife hug him.
But it may not be completely over for Pape and Smith. The DA can technically refile charges against the men if new evidence emerges. Tanya Friedley has always been convinced that they had the right men.
And I have thought about, if they get away with murder, to know in my heart that Christian and Robert took my family from me and could get away with it. I hope that they have to think about this every day for the rest of their life.
In June 2016, Robert Pape and Christian Smith were rearrested for the murders. The state says the charges were based on a new informant who claimed Smith had made an incriminating statement, better cell phone tracking, and more evidence that links Christian Smith to that business card found at the crime scene.
And they say in 2018 in January, we had a fingerprint match that we couldn't make since 2006. Sounds a little fishy.
Christian Smith's lawyer, John Patrick Dolan, says investigators had tunnel vision.
I think they began with the conclusion that my client and Mr. Pape are guilty and tried to collect evidence to support that rather than evaluating the evidence and see where it takes them.
The trial began in April 2018, almost 12 years after the crime. Dolan and Pape's new attorney, Jeff Moore, launched a vigorous defense, raising questions about the credibility of the state's new informant, who has had his own legal troubles, and the accuracy of the cell phone tracking and forensic evidence.
This is about as paper-thin case as I've ever seen.
After more than a month of trial, the case went to the jury. They would deliberate 10 agonizing days before giving word that they had finally reached a verdict. Robert Pape and Christian Smith were found guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of Vicki Friedley and John Hayward. Pape was found guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Becky Friedley.
I waited 11 years, 9 months for this day, and I'm very happy. There is no closure. Becky's gone. Vicki, John, they'll never come back.
But what the victim's family see as the right verdict is viewed as a terrible injustice by two other families. Robert Pape's mother was devastated. A jury has finally decided who was responsible for the murder of 3 people in Pinyon Pines. But the destruction left by that terrible night remains.
My sister was a beautiful person inside and out. And I want that remembered. I want to remember her for her, not for how she died.
This is Cassie Herring, a mother who's lost custody of her newborn baby, sleeping outside so she can breastfeed her infant every few hours.
I'm coming.
But that's not where this remarkable story begins. Cassie fell in love with Billy Fox, a dad, great with kids.
It's funny, nice, loving.
They became a family, happy, growing.
With Cameron, he was a perfect baby.
Then, one Friday night, everything changed.
It sounded like they hit hard. He let out a gasp of air.
He just ran in. He was frightened. I tried to do rescue breathing for him.
Billy and Cassie say Cameron's death was a tragic accident. But as Susan Spencer reports, that's not how the doctors see it.
Somebody in that family killed this child.
Billy is accused.
I'm not a baby killer.
Cassie swears he's innocent, and then she's forced to give up her other children.
Taking a newborn baby away from its mother is a pretty drastic step.
But is it all a tragic mistake? 48 Hours investigates. Prime suspect.
Welcome to 48 Hours Investigates. I'm Leslie Stahl. It seems like more than any family should have to endure. The loss of a child is always tragic, and then it's made even worse when suspicion points inside the home at a man who has a great reputation with kids, Billy Fox. What's more, this is a family that seemed to be overcoming the odds and getting a long overdue chance at happiness. Susan Spencer reports on the search for justice in the death of a child, but is it really a rush to judgment?
I've been a single dad for over 4 years. Come on, Rocky. Get it. I don't go fishing, hunting. That's my hobby. My kids and their friends and, coaching soccer. Good shot, Vicky.
33-year-old Billy Fox, father of 2, soccer coach.
1, 2, 3, go, go!
To all appearances, an all-around regular guy.
Officer Harold, Police Department.
But Billy Fox is about to turn himself in to the police.
I know.
His mother and girlfriend Cassie look on as police book him in the death of a baby, a charge that could put him in prison for the rest of his life.
He's a soccer coach, raised his kids, and it's wrong. It's really wrong.
Cross it!
Billy Fox may be one of the last people in Wichita Falls, Texas, you'd ever think would hurt a child.
Rocky.
Friends say that when he's not coaching soccer, Billy is a devoted single dad. He has full custody of his kids, Skylar and James.
He did everything. I mean, he cleaned house, he cooked. My dad was a good cook, though. Like, he was better at the more cookout kind of stuff. Just a regular dad. He's funny, nice, loving, big time.
What attracted me so much to Billy is what a wonderful father he was.
Cassie Herring first met Billy in the fall of 2000, a few years after his divorce, when Skylar was 8 and James was 11.
Our first date was Halloween, and we took the neighborhood kids trick-or-treating.
Cassie also was raising 2 kids on her own.
Here's the first picture of Peyton and Cameron.
Peyton was 2 years old.
Cameron he weighed 7 pounds, 4 ounces, perfect complexion.
And Cameron, a newborn. Cassie and her husband had split up a few months before his birth.
With Cameron, I loved him like he was my own, and to me, he was a perfect baby.
Here's Skylar, here's your dad's.
In a matter of months, they all were under one roof.
Having little brothers, that was fun because I got to teach them to do stuff.
Peyton, he just started gradually calling my dad Dad. It felt like life was really kind of getting better to where, I got a mom, I got, a bigger family kind of thing.
It just felt natural. We were on our way to being a great, happy family.
But in less than 6 months, events would shatter this new family. May 11th, 2001.
The kids were outside playing basketball and playing in the yard.
A Friday, around dinner time, an ordinary evening. 7-month-old Cameron was playing on the living room floor. When Billy's son James came inside, Billy asked him to pick up Cameron and bring him to the kitchen.
I was folding clothes on the table, on our little kitchen table.
And how did you trip?
I tripped on my shoelaces.
Cameron's head hit the kitchen floor. Concrete covered by a layer of tile.
And Cassie was getting frantic because we heard them hit. It sounded like they hit hard.
Fearing that Cameron was badly hurt, they rushed him to the emergency room at United Regional Health Care.
When you got to the hospital, what did the doctors tell you?
He treated me like I was an idiot. There was nothing wrong with him, and I knew something was wrong. I remember his eyes rolled in the back of his head, and that really scared me. And he had some foam coming out of his mouth.
X-rays showed no skull fractures, and doctors told Cassie her son would be fine, but to bring him back if his condition worsened.
Were you satisfied when you left the hospital that it was going to be okay?
I felt uneasy, but I believed the doctor.
I felt reassured by the doctor.
But the next day, Billy and Cassie both say Cameron just wasn't himself.
On Saturday, we went to the Y thinking that he would want to swim and, would be happy in the water because he loved the water. And it was like he didn't even, he didn't even want to do anything.
It's like he doesn't even know who we are, like he has amnesia.
Did you think about going back to the doctor?
I just trusted what the doctor said.
I went with the understanding that he said he's going to be a little groggy.
One day later, Sunday, around 5 o'clock, Cassie and Skylar decided to go shopping. When they left, Billy and Peyton were on the couch watching cartoons. Cameron was asleep in his crib.
Cameron woke up, so I went back there and got Cameron out of his crib, made Cameron a bottle, and tried to feed it to him.
And then, says Billy, within seconds, Cameron began to have a seizure.
He took about 2 sips, and his hand started twitching, and he let out a gasp of air like he was choking. And so I just immediately picked him up.
Billy rushed the baby to a neighbor, a nurse who lived right down the street.
Why didn't you call 911?
Because he wasn't breathing. And I knew that I had a registered nurse 4 houses down.
He just ran in. He was frightened. He was scared to death.
Tammy Edwards was getting ready for work.
I took the baby from him and I laid him down over here on the couch and I tried to do rescue breathing for him.
And she couldn't get his airway, couldn't get air to his airway.
Each breath that I could not get in, I just looked at him and I said, Billy, this is not good.
When he went limp, I didn't know. I'll probably never have another feeling like that in my entire life.
And I just looked at him and told him to call 911.
An ambulance arrived within minutes and sped Cameron to the hospital.
I was in shock. I was terrified.
And that was wrong.
Cassie raced to the emergency room, only to discover that Cameron was about to be flown to Fort Worth, Texas. By the time she and Billy got there to Cooks County Hospital, there was little hope.
I think that was like the last time, I knew something was really, really bad.
Cameron Herring, not yet 8 months old, died the next day.
It's like the more the time goes on, the more I think, I don't have my baby. I don't have my child, and he doesn't have his mommy.
But how did Cameron really die?
Somebody shook this child very violently.
I just don't see it that way.
The medical experts weigh in. Billy Fox is the prime suspect.
I'm not a baby killer.
Is he telling all he knows?
I remember sitting in the emergency room and everything collapsed.
Cassie Herring is sure her son's death is a result of a fall Friday night when his head struck the kitchen floor.
I remember I kept telling everybody, you just don't understand. It's from Friday night. It's from Friday night.
No, it's not an accidental sort of thing. I'm angry, I'm shaking.
But neurologist Jeffrey McLaughlin and several other doctors who examined Cameron are convinced that the baby's fatal injury had nothing to do with his fall on Friday.
Having been dropped 2 days before doesn't give you the picture that we saw that morning in the intensive care unit.
They kept telling us somebody did this, somebody did something to him, and we kept saying, you don't understand, he hit his head Friday night.
In fact, police and social workers began their investigation before Cameron even was pronounced dead.
It was like their mind had already been made up.
No matter what she told the hospital doctors, Cassie says, they insisted Cameron's death was no accident. Medical examiner Dr. Mark Krause agrees.
Somebody in that family killed this child. To me, the evidence is clear and convincing.
After completing his autopsy on 7-month-old Cameron, Krause thinks he can pinpoint how and when Cameron died.
He died from a blunt head injury that was inflicted on early Sunday afternoon. Whoever was around him at the moment he became unconscious is the person you should be looking at.
And who was the last person with Cameron on Sunday before his fatal seizure?
Anyone that knows me knows I would never hurt a child.
Billy Fox. In December of 2001, Billy Fox was charged with injury to a child. Maximum sentence, life in prison.
What they're going on is an autopsy report that labels this as a homicide. All right, fine.
Billy hired defense lawyer Bob Estrada.
Do you want to just come on down?
Yeah. It's already been a hard, grueling road for them. And on top of having a baby die, then the accusing finger's been pointed to them.
Billy and his lawyer are up against the medical examiner's report. A damning document. An injury to the part of the brain that you describe causes
immediate unconsciousness, no regaining of consciousness. The person.
Dr. Krause says Cameron's brain injury was so severe the baby would have been unconscious just seconds after it occurred. Instantly?
Yes, ma'am.
Not
Instantly.
10 minutes,
No.
not 15 minutes?
No.
Therefore, says Dr. Krause, that brain injury could not have happened on Friday, because Cameron never would have survived for 2 more days.
If that part of your brain is injured, you are not walking, you're not talking.
I mean, you say someone did this. What do you think someone did?
Most likely propelled the child into a relatively soft surface of padded flooring, couch cushion, mattress, kind of over the shoulder motion, like the guys do spiking a football or a slam dunk.
I didn't do it.
You had nothing to do with this child's death.
I love Cameron with all my heart.
Not even something that was a freak accident, a sudden outburst of temper, whatever.
Nope.
Absolutely nothing. It's just as you describe. Bob Estrada believes completely in his client,
It's the last guy in the world that you would figure would do anything like this.
insisting that Billy Fox is just not capable of hurting a baby. Why do you strongly believe these people?
Well, for one thing, I've gotten to know them over a period of time.
Come on, James. Come on, Scholar.
I see how they react with their own children.
See y'all tomorrow.
I see how Billy is.
And Estrada has found his own experts who look at the same medical records and believe Billy's story.
The injuries that this little boy received are entirely consistent with and directly attributable to the fall that he had 2 days earlier.
Dr. Ronald Usinski, a neurologist who has specialized in pediatric head injuries,
Let me have some suction.
believes Cameron began to have internal bleeding around his brain after he fell and hit his head on Friday.
It was the effect of the blood on the surface of the brain provoking a seizure. When he seized, he obstructed his airway and he aspirated and he died.
Nothing in your mind need have happened on Sunday.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. Nothing need have happened on Sunday.
You absolutely believe that a child can die from a short fall, and in fact, can die 2 days later, in essence, from a short fall.
Yes, I do.
If little falls could kill us, then none of us would make it to 5 years old. This doesn't make sense.
Bolstered their case that Cameron was injured on Sunday, the state turned to Dr. Randall Alexander, an authority in the field of pediatric head trauma.
So somebody, some adult-sized person, shook this child very violently, perhaps also hit their head against something in the process of that, and from that point on the child basically was unconscious and dying.
The prosecution's expert witnesses agree on one thing: someone did something that Sunday. But they disagree exactly as to what, and that could be very confusing for the jury. Dr. Krause thinks the baby was thrown against something soft. A mattress?
Mattress,
pillow,
couch cushion.
Dr. Alexander thinks he was shaken first.
So we're talking about shaking, the kind we see with shaken baby syndrome. Looks more like this.
Gosh.
This is a brain-breaking force. Once they have this, they're not recovering.
Attorney Bob Estrada thinks this battle of the experts actually could help his client. If the experts cancel each other out, is the trial going to come down just to whether they believe that this father could do this?
That's my strategy. That's where I think the heart of the trial is.
I'm innocent. I'm not a baby killer.
You feel so empty, you don't want to go on, but yet you have to go on for your other kids.
Thinking of, like, you're going to lose your dad kind of thing, it's not really a good feeling. And then, you've already lost one thing and they're going to take another one away.
But even as Cassie, Billy, and their kids prepare for a trial that could send Billy away for a long time,
We have fought so hard to keep our family together.
They're about to face another loss. Authorities now are threatening to take away 2-year-old Peyton.
Tell Mommy bye-bye. like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a big piece of you is missing, and it'll never come back.
Cassie Herring has said goodbye to her infant son, Cameron.
I never doubted Billy at all, even the day they told me that my son was brain dead and that they felt like Billy was responsible. I knew he was innocent.
But it's quickly apparent that her belief in Billy Fox's innocence will come at a high price.
This is Peyton and Karen's favorite toy. They played with it a lot, and they used to fight over it.
A court takes away her other son, 2-year-old Peyton, contending he could be at risk in the Fox household.
I've got him, and I know he's in safe hands. You know, I know he is.
Peyton will live with Patrick Herring, father to both Peyton and Cameron, even though he hasn't seen much of Peyton in the year since his bitter split from Cassie.
I was scared to death for Peyton. You know, Cameron's death wasn't an accident. So therefore, I do know that something was wrong and something went wrong in that house.
I feel we have done nothing wrong to have Peyton taken away from me.
Cassie vows to fight for her son.
So we'll put this before the judge and let him make a decision on it.
And hires a custody attorney, Deanne Smith, to help her.
I'm going to go in front of the judge and I'm going to tell the judge, I want my son back. I want my son back. I am not going home without my son.
From this whole thing, you are guilty until proven innocent.
But Billy, facing charges in the death of a baby,
You want to be with your family as much as you can be.
isn't allowed to see Peyton until his criminal trial is resolved.
My sole purpose is to raise my children and take care of them.
And Cassie, who is facing no charges, is allowed only a few hours a week with her son.
Oh, you got blue stuff on. Give me a kiss, I missed you.
And those visits here in this community center must be supervised.
What do you see out there? All the windows have bars on them. The door's locked. There's a video camera up there to make sure I don't try to snatch him or anything. But pretty much as long as you get to visit with your kids, it's all that matters. I'll see you next time. Give me a kiss. Bye, Peyton. I love you. Okay, y'all want to help put everything together real quick? Yeah. Just move it right here.
When Peyton's third birthday rolls around,
Is the tape in there? Scott, come set these on the table. James, I'm going to give you these balloons and tie them to strings and chairs or whatever.
Cassie goes all out to decorate the community center for a party.
Doesn't he look cute? Hey!
The minutes tick by, but no Peyton.
They're not here yet. We're just kind of waiting. Have they heard anything?
Finally, Cassie learns that her son is sick
That he's got the stomach flu?
and won't be able to make his own birthday party.
It happens all the time. He's always sick. Always sick.
Despite the intense disappointment,
He's not going to be here. I guess we'll go ahead and cut a piece.
Cassie insists this party is not canceled,
We'll have his party even if it's 2 months from now.
only postponed.
Y'all ready? You ready, James? You ready, Grandma?
A week later, in a desperate attempt to regain custody of Peyton, Cassie and her lawyer convince a judge to call an emergency hearing. There, they use the birthday party incident to argue that keeping Peyton with his father is dangerous to the child's health, pointing out that Peyton has been sick a lot recently.
You go right here. And so we asked the court to grant Cassie temporary custody until a hearing could be held. Here's all of our originals.
It's a desperate move.
Go ahead and wait outside the court.
And a long shot. But it works.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Oh, Dean! Oh God!
The court rewards Cassie temporary custody of Peyton.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can they go pick him up now?
Yeah, I will see if we can get him to pick him up.
Thank you so much.
As they get ready to pick up Peyton,
I cannot wait to get him.
They're blindsided.
I got a call from Sheriff Callahan, and Judge Purcell has rescinded this.
After the judge is briefed on the charges against Billy, he changes his mind.
Opposing counsel got it rescinded.
Peyton will stay with his father.
Why did he sign that?
I can't tell you, Cassie.
Well, let's go home. I felt like Peyton was ripped away from me, and I'm gonna fight to the day I die for my son.
As Cassie vows to keep her blended family together, Billy and attorney Bob Estrada prepare for trial.
You're charged with injury to a child. The stakes can potentially be very high.
Both well aware that a life sentence hangs over Billy's head.
Anyone that knows me knows I would never hurt a child.
But others in the community do have doubts. The soccer league, where he's coached for years, suddenly bans him from coaching until his criminal trial is resolved.
There's not a person I know that doesn't support me.
The news prompts an outpouring of support from parents, friends, and teachers.
He's wonderful with my children.
You all right? You're not drinking enough water.
I've never seen anybody love kids like he did.
That was a good shot.
Billy was a big fixture here at the school. He was a very involved dad.
2.
The response forces the Soccer Association to take another look at Billy's suspension.
Bob Black.
Bob, I was calling to find out if you'd heard from...
Oh, you bet. It's the decision of the committee that your coaching privileges are restored.
Okay, well, I appreciate it.
Billy is reinstated.
So I get to go to practice today and, go back to what I like doing the most, so I'm really happy.
But Billy knows it's a small victory in a bigger battle.
When do we quit?
To keep his family together.
Peyton was my little companion. I still wonder if he even would recognize me.
And to prove his innocence.
It was the worst feeling in my life. Just like all the life drained out of it.
Less than a year after Billy Fox and Cassie Herring brought their families together, Billy faces a possible life sentence for the death of Cassie's infant son, Cameron. But Cassie isn't wavering. She is convinced that Billy is innocent. Both say it was an accident caused by a very hard fall at home. But several doctors are certain that Cameron was in fact murdered. Because of that, Cassie has lost custody of her other son, Peyton. But now, even as Billy Fox prepares to defend himself at trial, a dramatic new series of events is about to unfold for Billy and Cassie and for their family. Here again is Susan Spencer.
I just never thought things like that happened. I never thought there was a possibility that Cameron would die, I never thought that.
Her boyfriend awaits trial in the death of her son. But far from distancing herself from Billy Fox,
I never doubted Billy. I knew he was innocent.
Cassie Herring makes her commitment to him official.
We've gotten married, I guess.
Not only that,
Look at all the gifts I got. It's a playpen. It's a playpen deal.
but a baby is on the way.
I love you. No.
All this with Billy facing a possible life sentence.
He's 7 pounds and 3 ounces.
In December 2002,
Oh my gosh, you look beautiful.
the Fox family welcomes its newest member, Bailey.
That's okay. You want just like this?
But 12 hours later, joy turns to sorrow.
Can you go get me a Kleenex, please? This right here?
Armed with a court order, 2 social workers from Child Protective Services arrive at the hospital to take Bailey, not yet 1 day old, away from his mother. The family has an hour to say goodbye.
He's so pretty, isn't he?
Leaving him that day was almost like having my heart ripped out.
Taking a newborn baby away from its mother is a pretty drastic step.
We certainly empathize with the mother, but you have to appreciate our side too.
Jeff Wool, the CPS spokesperson for Texas, makes no apologies for the decision, believing Bailey could be at risk in the Fox home.
That's our responsibility to make sure that in an investigation like this where a child has died, that the other children are protected.
Cassie had offered to leave Billy, move out, and raise Bailey on her own. But Child Protective Services said that wouldn't help. Why not? Because their experts now believe that Cameron could have been injured an hour or two earlier than they originally thought. That would include time when Cassie was still in the house. And so in their eyes, she is now a suspect too.
Cameron woke up and his hands started twitching and he let out a gasp of air.
Remember, Billy has said Cameron had his fatal seizure while Cassie was out shopping that fateful day in 2001.
Whoever was around him at the moment he became unconscious is the person you should be looking at.
And the medical examiner for the state has said that Cameron's brain injury was so severe he would have been unconscious seconds after it occurred. Instantly?
Yes, ma'am.
Not
Instantly.
10 minutes,
No.
not 15 minutes?
No.
But since other experts aren't so absolutely certain as to time, Child Protective Services, CPS, now says it isn't sure who hurt Cameron.
Either one of them could have been the ones who actually inflicted the damage. We feel like there is evidence there that suggests that Cassie may have been responsible for the death of Cameron.
I mean, that's a case of reasonable doubt, in my mind, right there.
To Billy's lawyer, Bob Estrada, CPS's position is a godsend because it so confuses the criminal case against Billy.
I have no problem with the fact that they disagree with the police and with the district attorney. I want them to continue to disagree.
Billy's new son, meanwhile, has been placed with his grandmother, Donna.
We promised him we'd go by the rules, and we do. Is the keys in the car?
And Cassie is allowed visits to breastfeed. It's an unusual arrangement at best.
I'm tired.
Cassie arrives at Donna's for Bailey's 10 o'clock feeding.
I have an electric blanket plugged in to the outside of the house. She takes the electric blanket and puts it in the car and then goes out there and sleeps in the car.
To be there to feed the baby during the night, Cassie must sleep in her van, outside.
I'm coming. Hello. Hello. She comes in at 1 o'clock and feeds Bailey. Bailey, are you hungry?
45-minute timed feedings.
Are you ready to start taping it?
That must be videotaped.
Look at that belly. Cassie. Cassie, it's time to go.
Then it's back out to the van for Cassie until the next feeding. Every 3 hours.
Are you hungry now?
All night.
And sometimes it's pretty cold out there, too.
On this particular evening, it is 21 degrees. Billy, meanwhile, is allowed only supervised visits with Bailey a few hours a week.
He's not the same person he used to be. Right now, he's very depressed.
Is the stress getting to him? I think it is.
And with Billy's upcoming trial, that's what Bob Estrada is worried about.
They're going to ask you some questions that are designed to get under your skin.
Estrada knows the prosecution will hammer home its argument that Billy Fox is a child killer.
Could be a rough trial, could have a verdict of serious consequences.
And Billy's most important witness
First of all, dress appropriately.
probably will be Billy himself.
Good morning. My name is Bob Estrada, and I have the honor of representing Billy Fox before you today.
With just weeks to go, Estrada stages a mini trial to see if a panel of mock jurors will buy Billy's story.
Cameron was in the living room playing.
Billy runs through the weekend Cameron died,
So I told James to bring Cameron to me so that
starting with his fall on Friday night.
And when he came through, he fell. So we grabbed Cameron and we headed out the door to the emergency room. The doctor told us, he said, well, he's gonna be a little dazed.
His seizure, Sunday afternoon.
Well, then Sunday, he just let out a gasp for air like he was choking. It was the worst feeling in my life. Just like all the life drained out of him.
Just rate 1 through 5 on each of the direct boxes only.
After Billy's testimony, Estrada realizes there is a lot of work ahead.
I don't think he's ready today. I think he's getting readier and readier.
Only half the jurors believed Billy's story.
It may, in the end, come down to you. Do you want to take the stand?
I plan on taking the stand. Can you do your hook yourself, or do you need me to do it?
I can do it.
I spend time with my kids and my family.
No, I got a fish.
Catch one?
Yeah.
Skylar's the best fisherman, aren't you, Skylar?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will try to make some special moments between now and then.
That one.
You know, just in case things did go wrong, I could leave some memories.
Billy Fox braces himself for his upcoming trial, now only a few weeks away.
You know, he doesn't know after the trial whether he's going to go home to his family or if he's going to be in custody.
The charge, injury to a child, carries a potential life sentence. But just 8 days before trial,
It's a complicated case.
prosecutors, apparently worried about losing this case, unexpectedly offer Billy Fox a phenomenal deal. No jail time at all, in exchange for a plea of no contest.
No contest. That is, you're not admitting guilt.
That is, Billy wouldn't have to admit guilt. He'd only have to concede that given the evidence, a jury could find him guilty.
You don't say you're guilty, but you might as well if you say no contest.
Billy says forget it.
We're not accepting the plea bargain.
He is not interested in any deal.
I just think it's doing what's right for Cameron.
He's determined to clear his name.
He's standing up and saying, I'm an innocent man and I'm not going to do anything that would make anybody think that I was anything but an innocent man, and a no contest plea is not good enough.
April 17th, 2003.
I will be putting my life in 12 individuals' hands.
State of Texas versus Billy Fox.
Billy Fox is charged with injury to a child and the death
And
of his late
it's
son,
scary.
Cameron.
Just minutes before showtime,
Before proceedings were going to start, they said this is your last chance.
Billy has a complete change of heart. He accepts the state's offer, 10 years probation for a plea of no contest.
It was a scary thought of just, you know, not knowing what was going to happen to you after you put your life in 12 people's hands.
When you take a plea, I mean, there is sort of an underlying assumption that something happened here.
Right.
And in fact, I mean, you are the only person on the face of the earth who knows what happened that day.
And I know that nothing happened to Cameron on Sunday. He was fine until he had his seizure.
The criminal case now is behind them, but there will be more days in court.
And I'm going to fight till the day I die for my son.
Fighting for shared custody of Cassie's son Peyton, who's been living with his father.
Give me kids, I missed you.
And on this day, for full custody of newborn Bailey, who's been in the care of Billy's mother.
everyone here is looking out for the best interest of Bailey Fox.
Child Protective Services, which took Bailey away at birth, has done a complete about-face and now is recommending his return.
Texas law basically says that we shoot for reunification whenever possible.
Doubly astonishing, given that CPS still thinks one of the parents caused Cameron's death.
Medical evidence indicates that either Billy or Cassie were responsible for the injuries that caused Cameron Herring's death.
But the agency tells the court that despite its suspicions, it still feels it's in Bailey's best interest to be home, reunited with his parents. The judge agrees.
Oh, we're ecstatic. We're just ecstatic.
Yay.
You ready to go home?
Say bye-bye.
It's kind of like bringing my newborn home, and only the case is Bailey's now 8 months old, and I don't want to miss out on any more milestones.
The Foxes feel they've a chance at last for a new beginning.
It's hard without Cameron.
But sadly, one without Cameron, who would have just turned 3.
Our family will never be the same. Our, marriage will never be the same. Just nothing will ever be the same without Cameron.
The American Academy of Pediatrics tells doctors that whenever they see injuries they believe are caused by shaking, they should presume that it's child abuse. But critics say shaken baby is often misdiagnosed, that more research is needed so doctors can better recognize what is evidence of child abuse versus what might be just a tragic accident.
You can't imagine the sleepless nights for 30 years, trying to hold on to painful memories because one day it might be important to be told in court. I was 23 years old. I worked third shift, 11 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock in the morning. It was March 11th, 7:15 in the morning. There was still a little bit of snow on the ground. As I stepped on the porch, Clyde was usually happy to jump all over me, but he cowered from me. And I thought, well, that was unusual. And I put the key in the door, and once I unlocked the door, then he was jumping all over me like, oh, thank God you're here. And I didn't think much of it at the time until I opened up the door. I stood in the doorway for a while. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. My brain didn't want to accept what I was seeing. I was actually trying to hear her breath, and she just wouldn't breathe. Then all of a sudden it was, Christopher, is my son okay?
It was around 7:30 in the morning. Phone rang. Said somebody killed Marilyn last night. She's dead. And I just started screaming, not Marilyn, not Marilyn. I am Carolyn Ron. Marilyn McIntyre was my twin sister. Why would somebody do that to an 18-year-old?
It was a heinous crime, is what it was. I was there. I seen the body. My name is Lee Erdman, and I was the chief of police in Columbus, Wisconsin in 1980. We're looking for a mean individual, not a stranger. It's someone in the immediate family or a close friend.
I knew it was coming. The husband, 9 times out of 10, usually is the guy that did it.
I just automatically thought Lane. I'm Brenda Daniels, Marilyn's older sister. Brenda and I did not agree from day one who committed the crime. I couldn't tell you how many trips we made to Columbus Police Department. Same runaround. We'll get back to you. There's nothing new.
We never got enough information to secure a warrant for an arrest.
Somewhere along the line, Columbus dropped the ball.
After 1983, this case went cold. I am Wayne Smith. I'm a lieutenant with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. We take some personal pride in not having unsolved homicides in this county, and here we find out there is one, and not only is it unsolved, but it's, you know, nearly 30 years old.
It was like an explosion. They thought it could be solved.
It's something that shouldn't have taken this long. There was only going to be one try at this. Witnesses were dying at this point. Memories certainly aren't improving after 30 years, so this was going to be it.
Last chance for justice.
Growing up in a small town, everybody knows everybody. It's been difficult, you know, not knowing exactly what happened.
Growing up in Columbus, Wisconsin, 31-year-old Christopher McIntyre thought he had an idyllic small-town childhood.
For the most part, I was happy and a normal kid growing up, just like everybody else.
Until the day when he learned an awful truth.
I guess I was about 9 or 10. That's when my father decided to let me know. The woman I thought was my mother, I found out was not my real mother. He told me, you'll never meet your real mom. She's gone.
Chris was only 3 months old and asleep in his crib when his mother, Marilyn, was murdered in 1980. His father, Lane, had struggled for years to find the right time to tell him.
I was waiting for him to get a little older.
That had to be really tough to hear.
Yeah, confusing and tough, yes.
She never got to hear Christopher call her mom. So much was taken away from her.
Carolyn Ron is Marilyn McIntyre's identical twin. Her world was torn apart when her sister was brutally murdered nearly 3 decades ago.
It was hell. I turned to alcohol. My marriage failed. I wasn't there for my children.
I think she feels like when Marilyn died, a big part of her died.
Carolyn's daughter, Tara Doucette, was born less than a year after Marilyn's death.
My first memories are seeing my mom crying on the phone about Marilyn.
As Tara grew up, she witnessed her mother's constant efforts to convince the Columbus Police Department to reopen Marilyn's case.
I couldn't tell you how many detectives we went through. We didn't know where else to turn, where to go.
In 2007, 27 years after Marilyn's murder, Tara decided to take matters into her own hands. She made a phone call that would prove to be fateful. Ironically, she called the wrong number.
I thought I was calling the Columbus Police Department, and instead it was the number to the Columbia County Sheriff's Department.
I had never heard that there was an unsolved homicide within the county. It wasn't in our record system.
After reviewing the case, Detective Lieutenant Wayne Smith made a crucial decision. The Sheriff's Department would reopen the investigation.
You could tell right away that they cared. They seemed shocked that it had went on this long.
That's right in the living room where she was found.
As Smith and county detectives began digging into the old case files from 1980, their first question was simple. Who was Marilyn McIntyre?
She was my best friend.
Marilyn and Carolyn Ron were born on November 14, 1961. Only 5 years later, tragedy struck.
Our real mother was killed in a car accident in 1966.
The twins, along with older siblings Brenda and Dean, were soon living with their father and an abusive stepmother.
It was physically abusive, mentally, verbally abusive. And it was mainly on Marilyn and I. And at the age of 13, we finally moved into foster care.
At age 16, Marilyn was looking for stability in her life, something she found in 21-year-old Lane McIntyre.
I was just enamored with Marilyn right away.
It was instant.
She's so pretty. It's like, just control yourself, you know?
It was love at first sight.
I wanted to take care of her, be there for her.
But while Carolyn approved of the relationship, Marilyn's older sister Brenda was wary.
I just didn't think he was good enough for Marilyn. She had a rough life growing up. Was this guy gonna make it any easier? No.
Despite Brenda's concerns, the couple married on January 19, 1979, when Marilyn was just 17 years old.
It was a small party, maybe only a dozen people, but it was one of the happiest days of my life.
Soon, Lane and Marilyn added a new member to the family when Christopher was born in December of that year.
That coming summer was going to be the best summer of our lives, being husband and wife with our brand new baby.
The evening of March 10, 1980, started like any other night in the home of Lane and Marilyn McIntyre.
We did laundry, and then I left for work.
Do you remember the last thing you said to Marilyn or what she said to you?
She said, "I love you. Do you love me?" No, of course I do.
The next time Lane saw his wife, she was dead. And what did you see when you walked in?
A body on the floor with a knife sticking in the side of her chest and a mutilated head.
Lee Erdman was the Columbus police chief in 1980. He found it significant that there was no sign of forced entry or a robbery, indicating that Marilyn knew her killer.
Speculation was she might have answered the door and let someone in.
Betty Clentz, who lived in the apartment above the McIntyres, learned about Marilyn's death from Lane himself.
It was about 5:10 after 7. Somebody pounded on our door downstairs. It was Lane. And he said, "Did you hear anything last night?" He said, "I just found my wife murdered."
By the time Chief Erdman knocked on her door, Betty remembered that she did hear something unusual in the middle of the night.
About 3:15 in the morning, I woke up and the dog was just barking up a storm, and it was like he was pulling on something.
Whose dog?
Lane and Marilyn's.
And was it unusual?
Well, I'd never heard him bark before like that.
Based on Betty's statement, police believe the murder occurred around 3:15 in the morning, a time when Marilyn's husband said he was at work.
I never left.
Lane did, however, give police their first big lead. When they asked you who might be a suspect, you gave the name Kurt Forbes.
I did?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I probably did.
Did you consider Kurt Forbes one of your best friends?
At that time, yes. At that time, I didn't know what he was capable of. I was just mystified. I'm just trying to understand why. Why to Marilyn?
As police were running down Lane McIntyre's apparent alibi for the night his wife Marilyn died, he was offering them another suspect, one of his best friends, Curtis Forbes. Why would Kurt Forbes kill your wife?
I believe that Kurt Forbes had a crush on Marilyn, and his girlfriend just left him, and He was on the prowl that night.
That's our engagement picture.
Curtis Forbes was engaged to marry 22-year-old Debbie Adelson in March of 1980.
You know, I was young back then, in love, and he was what I wanted in my world.
The couple hung out frequently with the McIntyres.
We'd play cards, or we'd go fishing, we'd go out to eat. We got to be really close friends.
But according to Lane, Marilyn soon heard some disturbing news about Kurt.
Debbie began to tell Marilyn stories about abuse.
Lane says Debbie confided in Marilyn that Kurt would occasionally beat her up, and that just days before Marilyn's murder, Debbie broke up with Kurt. Had Marilyn encouraged Deborah to leave
Yes.
Kurt? Lane believes the newly single Kurt Forbes was looking for some action on the night Marilyn was killed.
And then he goes, aha, I'll go check on Lane's wife. Lane's at work. I believe he had the intention to rape.
Former police chief Lee Erdman questioned Kurt about his whereabouts on the early morning hours of March 11th.
He said he had went out and proceeded to play pool and have a good time.
According to witnesses, Kurt tried to pick up a woman at the bar. She rejected him. When the bar closed at 1 a.m., he drove to the house of another woman, Lori Heft.
I was home with my then boyfriend.
According to Lori, Kurt arrived around 1:15 a.m. and stayed just a few minutes. Why do you think Kurt stopped by your house that night?
I think that he was going to probably try and make sexual advances towards me.
After leaving Lori's, Kurt said he drove to Debbie Adelson's house, arriving after 2 a.m. But when investigators talked to Debbie Adelson and her parents, what time did they say he arrived?
4 o'clock.
So there's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Unaccounted for.
Yeah. Where did he go? What did he do?
And then, just one day after he was grilled by police, Kurt Forbes skipped town.
Innocent people don't run. Kurt Forbes ran.
Kurt soon sent letters to Lane and Debbie.
Dear Lane, I don't know how to express my sympathy for you at this time. I don't want to go to jail for something I didn't
do. There's too much circumstantial evidence against me, so I have to go.
But what was the circumstantial evidence against him that he's talking about?
What people were saying, that he was violent.
Debbie initially told police that Kurt had arrived at her parents' house at 4 a.m. on the night of Marilyn's murder, but later said she might have been mistaken.
It was either 10 after 4 or 20 after 2. I just saw the two hands.
The circumstantial case against Kurt seemed to be weak, and police soon learned that none of the physical evidence taken at the crime scene could be linked to him either. After 2 months on the lam, Kurt returned to the Columbus area, and just 5 months later, he and Debbie Adelson were married. Did you have any questions about marrying him?
None.
But you knew other people were talking about him.
I think that back then it was more, they were talking about Lane.
And in fact, around Columbus, suspicion had begun to shift away from Kurt and back towards Marilyn's husband.
I thought maybe Lane did it.
Betty Klentz had always felt uncomfortable about her neighbor's calm demeanor when he came to her door the morning of the murder.
If I was him and it was my wife, I probably would have started in like this. You know, my God, I just came home from work and I found my wife murdered. But no, he just said it in a nice, calm voice.
Betty told the police about frequent fights that she heard between Marilyn and Lane. Neighbors say that you guys would argue.
That's their speculation. The McIntyre family, we're boisterous. We talk loud in our house.
And Marilyn's older sister Brenda, who had never liked Lane, believed he had a motive for killing his wife.
Lane looked at me and he goes, Brenda, guess what I did? He goes, I took out a life insurance policy for Marilyn.
It turns out Lane had purchased a $10,000 life insurance policy for Marilyn less than a week before her murder.
3 days later, she's dead. I was mortified.
And that wasn't all. Within months of Marilyn's death, Lane was dating, and he soon remarried.
He was just getting on with his life, like it was nothing.
I'm a young man. I've got a 3-month-old baby. I needed another woman in my life.
Although there was suspicious circumstantial evidence against both Lane and Kurt, the police did not arrest either man. Instead, their investigation mysteriously ground to a halt.
4 years go by, 5 years go by.
Our thoughts that it would never be solved.
For Lane, each passing year brought increased scrutiny.
My own son was taught to think I did it.
Things started to go sour between me and my father.
Did you ever just say, Dad, did you have anything to do with this?
I did not. It'd be such a hard question to ask. Dad, did you have something to do with killing Mom?
At age 15, the tension between father and son reached a boiling point, and Christopher moved out of the house.
I lost Mother, and now I feel like I lost Father.
The toll on Marilyn's family would continue to grow.
You know, we've grown up in broken homes our whole life because they didn't know how to carry on after Marilyn died.
Years would turn into decades, and still no answers. Until that fateful call.
When I took a look at this case, my question was, why didn't he get arrested in 1980? I made a promise to the victim's family. We will do our best at this, and I believe when we're done, we'll be able to tell you who I believe did it.
That's so important. We should.
In 2007, Columbia County Sheriff's detectives reopened the investigation into Marilyn McIntyre's murder. And after digging into the old case files, they found a piece of evidence that would soon blow the case wide open.
There was this very small stain in a bathroom sink that had the victim's blood in it.
In 1980, blood and hair samples had been taken from the crime scene. More than 2 decades later, that blood evidence was sent to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab for DNA testing.
When the report came back on that, there was possibly 2 other contributors. However, one of those contributors was not Lane McIntyre. He was 100% excluded from that.
And is there any of the suspects a possible contributor?
There is.
When the lab compared DNA from a sample of Kurt Forbes' hair to the stain in the sink,
He was listed as a possible contributor in that stain.
but Wayne Smith knew there were limits to this DNA evidence.
You have to remember that, this is likely a pinhead-sized stain in a sink.
And being a possible contributor was not conclusive proof. The lab results showed that it wasn't necessarily Kurt. The DNA could also come from 1 out of every 98 people.
But it wasn't her husband.
But it wasn't her husband, and it wasn't any single other person that had ever been mentioned as a suspect or had been in that house, because we tested them.
So Smith and county investigators focused their attention on Kurt Forbes and began to re-interview everyone connected to the crime.
I wasn't worried about not remembering.
Lori Heff told detectives that on March 11, 1980, Kurt stopped by her house at around 1:15 a.m.
He was there for 5 minutes.
She also recalled a conversation she had just weeks later with Kurt's girlfriend, Debbie Adelson.
She said, well, he showed up at my place around 4 o'clock with blood on his shirt and wanted me to take care of it.
I don't even know her.
Debbie, who was still married to Kurt Forbes in 2007, remembers that time very differently. She says there never was a shirt with blood.
So if Lori says that you talked about the fact that there was blood on a shirt, she's not telling the truth?
How can it be?
And in fact, when Lori gave police a statement back in 1981, she never mentioned a bloody shirt.
Why wouldn't you tell the police that she also mentioned blood?
I assumed that Deborah had brought that up.
Detectives heard other rumors. Family and friends of the Adelsons said that Debbie's mom talked about washing Kurt's bloody clothes that night.
We would love to have talked to her parents because I believe that they had really good information.
But unfortunately, Debbie's parents were no longer alive. None of the statements could be verified.
For some reason, this family wasn't interviewed about Kurt's arrival at their home. And that's a critical piece of evidence.
Detectives spent 2 years sorting through the evidence and interviewing more than 60 witnesses.
It got to the point where Kurt was the only one left to talk to at this point.
Finally, on March 24, 2009, 29 years after Marilyn's murder, Kurt Forbes was served with a search warrant and brought in for questioning.
Before you sit down, what I'd like to do, I guess, is go back to March 10th, 1980, that night. He was at the Tallahassee for a little while, and then I left there.
When asked what time he arrived at the Adelsons' house, Kurt remained consistent.
It was around 2 o'clock. So she had told us that you got there at a little bit after 4, and she looked at the clock. That would be inaccurate, or it was around 2.
After nearly an hour of questioning, Wayne Smith tells Kurt that his DNA was found mixed with Marilyn's blood in the bathroom sink.
How do you explain that your DNA is in her blood? I wouldn't know. What I'm talking about, my DNA is in her blood. Wow.
As Kurt's interrogation stretched on, 2 other detectives visited his wife at home.
I was in shock. I didn't know what was going on.
She agreed to answer their questions, but didn't realize the interview was being recorded.
I know you know that we've reopened this case.
She was asked about Kurt's rumored bloody shirt.
Did it have blood on it?
I don't remember that. No, I can't say.
You can't say or you can't remember?
I can't remember.
As detectives continued to push Debbie about the bloody shirt, her answers began to change.
You showed up at the house, bloody clothes, and your mom washed them. I know you know that.
Yeah, but I just don't remember it right now.
But you just said yeah.
Finally, after more than 4 hours of questioning, Debbie's memory of that night seemed to return.
I had a white shirt on underneath the blue sweater, and I saw blood there.
You did.
Now I remember that. I know I asked about the blood, and he told me some bull, and I can't remember what he told me. And I believed it.
Couldn't stand up.
Hours later, armed with Debbie's damning new information, detectives arrested Kurt Forbes for the murder of Marilyn McIntyre.
I knew 100% Kurt Forbes was the one that was responsible for this murder.
But making that case to a jury was about to get much tougher after a judge ruled that the crucial DNA evidence that seemed to place Kurt Forbes at the crime scene would not be allowed at trial.
It was devastating, and I thought there was a greater chance that he'd get away with it.
It's like we got him. We finally got him.
29 years after Marilyn McIntyre's murder, her family believed detectives finally had the right man, Curtis Forbes. Even Marilyn's sister Brenda, who had long suspected Lane McIntyre, was convinced.
Is there one moment, one piece of evidence that made you change?
Yeah, when the blood stain had Kurt's DNA in it.
But then, a judge threw out that DNA evidence, ruling it was not conclusive enough to be used against Forbes.
Is our job tougher? Absolutely, but that doesn't mean we can't get it done.
Assistant Attorney General David Wambach decided to move forward anyway with a completely circumstantial case.
We're behind Kurt 100% in this ordeal.
Kurt's brothers, Mike and Dennis, believe the charges should have been dropped.
Well, I am angry, you know. They threw my brother in prison for nothing.
But on November 9, 2010, Curtis Forbes goes on trial for murder. It begins with a dispute over when Marilyn died, an important issue since Lane McIntyre has an alibi for the hours between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., while Kurt Forbes' whereabouts are in question.
So what time do you believe that Marilyn McIntyre was murdered?
I believe that it's sometime very close to 3:15, and that's why Clyde, the dog, is acting up the way he is.
That information came from the McIntyre's upstairs neighbor, Betty Clentz.
I had to get up around, between 3 and 3:30 because the dog was having such a fuss outside.
And there's a second witness, a friend of the McIntyres, who drove by their house twice on the night of the crime. First at around 12:30 a.m.
Did you notice whether or not the lights were on when you went past to go home?
No, I didn't see no lights.
Then again at around 3:15.
At that time, I noticed the porch light was on and the dog was tied outside.
That evidence, says the prosecutor, proves that Marilyn had to be alive between midnight and 3:15 a.m. on March 11th to turn on the light and let the dog out.
A cat can go in the litter box. The dog, you gotta let him out.
But the defense says Marilyn died earlier, before Lane went to work. They point to the testimony of the McIntyre's other neighbor. She lived next door to Lane and Marilyn and heard a noise coming from their apartment at 10 p.m. on March 10th.
We went to bed and we could hear voices, like they were maybe arguing or something.
But that was all the neighbor heard. And Wambach reminds the jury that Marilyn had a 3-month-old baby who needed to be fed every few hours.
You're saying somebody would have heard that baby crying.
Exactly. And we knew that none of the neighbors had heard any crying.
Wambach now moves on to the next important point in the timeline. What time did Kurt Forbes arrive at Debbie Adelson's home that night? At 2 a.m. or 4 a.m.?
If he actually got there at 2 o'clock, then it doesn't look like he's the one to have committed the murder.
Because Debbie says she could no longer be sure when Kurt turned up, the prosecutor calls witnesses who spoke to Debbie back in 1980 about Kurt's arrival.
What time did Debbie say Kurt showed up at her parents'?
I believe it was around 4 o'clock in the morning.
She said it was at 4 o'clock.
About 4 o'clock in the morning?
For Kurt Forbes, the case hangs on this one question.
Where was Kurt from 1:30 in the morning till 4 in the morning?
I have no idea. We never asked him.
With his case winding down, Wambach knew that his most crucial witness was also the most unpredictable.
I didn't ask for any of this.
On the day of Kurt's arrest in 2009, Debbie Forbes told detectives that she had seen blood on Kurt's shirt on the night of the murder. But on the stand, Debbie now denies she saw anything.
Did you see anything on his clothing that you took notice of?
No.
You did tell them that Kurt had blood on his shirt that night.
I don't remember saying that, and I know I didn't see it. And how they got me to say that, they could have gotten me to say anything at that point.
Did Kurt show up with blood on his shirt? The prosecutor has one final piece of evidence he believes provides the answer.
Debbie, what's going on?
A prison phone call between Kurt and Debbie Forbes recorded just 2 days after Kurt's arrest.
The facts are, Deborah, I did not murder Marilyn McIntyre.
Then where'd the bloody shirt come from?
I'll explain all that. I did not kill Marilyn.
Well, explain it to me then.
I'm not on the phone. I need a lawyer, Debbie.
What's so beautiful about it, too, is what it doesn't say. He doesn't say, what blood? What do you mean, blood?
But Curtis Forbes' attorneys downplay the call. They point to the fact that there was no physical evidence linking Kurt to the crime scene.
None of the hairs were consistent with Curtis Forbes.
And then, to create more doubt in the mind of the jurors, the defense calls an unlikely witness, Lane McIntyre.
I knew I was going to be grilled and I didn't care.
Forbes' attorney wastes no time putting Lane in the hot seat.
Approximately 3 days before the death of your wife, did you have occasion to talk to an insurance agent?
Yes.
And what did you do with relation to that insurance agent?
He showed up on my doorstep unannounced, solicited me. You're a young man starting a young family. You need life insurance.
Lane is peppered with questions about finding his wife murdered,
I stood in the doorway, trying to accept what I was seeing.
about pointing the finger at his best friend.
Did you tell officers that a person they might want to look at was Kurt Forbes?
Yes.
And about whether he and Marilyn argued before he went to work.
You do not recall an argument that you had with Marilyn McIntyre on March 10th, 1980, between the time you got home and the time you went to work?
No. He was trying to accuse me of killing Marilyn and then going to work like nothing happened.
As the trial comes to a close, the jury must decide, is the right man on trial? Did Kurt Forbes kill Marilyn McIntyre? Or did her husband, Lane?
Hopefully, Marilyn gets the justice that she deserves.
On November 15, 2010, after 6 days of testimony and more than 45 witnesses, the fate of Curtis Forbes is in the hands of the jury.
We thought it was going to be an all-night thing, and we'd be back in the morning.
Instead, the jury is out just 2.5 hours.
Thinking this can't be good.
The families of Kurt Forbes and Marilyn McIntyre,
We got a verdict.
scramble back into the courtroom for the verdict.
It was probably the scariest point in my life.
Everything at that point is resting in that moment for the judge to read the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Curtis E. Forbes, guilty of first-degree murder.
It was just like,
Dated this 15th day of
Wow.
November 2010.
We just went nuts.
all this pain that I had to carry, this baggage, I could finally let go of.
For Marilyn's family, it's the end of 3 decades of pent-up anguish.
Justice for Marilyn, finally.
Finally over. Oh, my God. It's finally over.
But on the other side of the courtroom, where the Forbes family sits,
He is innocent.
It was just unreal.
devastation.
They found a guy guilty of murder, going to put him in jail for life, and only deliberated in 2 hours on circumstantial evidence?
Get that out of my face.
It was a quick verdict, in part, says prosecutor David Wambach, because the jury believed there had been a bloody shirt.
If you can convince them to say, I have no doubt that Kurt Forbes had blood on him and that that was Marilyn's blood, everything else just falls in behind that.
There was never any blood.
But even today, Debbie Forbes insists that she never saw blood on Kurt that night. When you, though, called Kurt on the phone, you asked him.
Then where'd the bloody shirt come from?
I'll explain all that.
Yeah, I wanted to know about this bloody shirt everybody was talking about. I hadn't seen one.
Do you believe that Deborah Forbes lied on the stand?
Well, yes, she committed perjury. I don't think that the jury found much of anything that she said or did to be believable.
But Debbie now no longer seems willing to protect the man she married 30 years ago.
Do you think you know the truth now?
It's in there. Just have to accept it.
It sounds like, Debbie, you do believe your husband killed Marilyn McIntyre. That's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Three months after the verdict, Kurt Forbes is sentenced to life in prison.
Whatever tiny little bit of doubt I would have had in my mind was clearly pushed out.
Finally convinced of his father's innocence, Christopher McIntyre is looking forward to repairing their relationship. So is Lane.
Marilyn would want her son and her husband to be the best of friends. We got a lot of catching up to do.
Following the sentencing, Marilyn McIntyre's family visits her final resting place.
They're beautiful. Yellow is her favorite color.
Justice for Marilyn.
Justice for Marilyn.
They release balloons. And with them, more than 30 years of pain and frustration.
If you can imagine being judged when you're telling the truth for 30 years,
Over.
and then finally, after all these years, finally, vindication.
My mom can start a new life. Our family is going to start a new life now.
Wayne?
This family was persistent.
Detective Lieutenant Smith and Assistant Attorney General Wambach are quick to acknowledge that without Marilyn's family, her murder would never have been solved.
It's to their credit that they kept this case alive.
If it took me till the day I died, I was never giving up. Don't ever give up.
Because eventually somebody does have to listen.
You are the victim's voice. She's still watching us.
Marilyn would want us to have closure. There are so many people that love Marilyn, still do, always will.